We have just come to the end of the second day of questioning of the undercover police officer who used the cover name Jason Bishop. He infiltrated Reclaim the Streets, disarmed Dicey, Earth First, campaign against the arms trade, various other related groups like the Wombles. He specifically infiltrated the life of Emily Apple, who is joining me now. It's been a frustrating day of questioning. It really feels rushed. It really feels like there's so much that we didn't get through.
Oh, I mean, to be honest, I'm just angry at this moment in time because there is so much that we haven't covered. There is so many follow-ups to the things that were asked that weren't explored. And I mean, and actually, there's probably stuff that I can't talk about that are in the documents that haven't been followed up on. I'm just realizing as I started to talk about it. We told the inquiry all along. They originally had him listed for a day.
Yep. This was because John Mitting said it was an unremarkable deployment.
Yes.
Thankfully, Common Sense intervened, and as well as Monday, which only covered 2 years of his 7-year deployment. He was called back for today, though he didn't get started with his evidence until 12:30 today, because obviously there was another witness booked in for the morning, which was totally understandable, Lois Austin, which we've covered in detail already. But yeah, in terms of the questioning that we did have today of Jason Bishop, I mean, we started off with the 2001 Dicey. There was a great deal about that.
And all the stuff that I don't have any reporting on, that he he said he agreed with all my memories. So I put in my statement about the fact that we spent a day driving to this lockup in Canning Town, like moving leaflets and props and stuff like that. I spent half the day with him on the day itself. I went to months of meetings with him, and I've got no reporting from that period whatsoever. And he was just like, well, yeah, no, I remember that. And yes, I would have reported it. But again, lost reports.
I mean, he did very much have a strategy of admitting what was in the reports, not disputing anything that you said.
Oh, it's bizarre.
I mean, completely. I mean, in fact, there were a couple of times where he started to challenge it, and then he reminded himself of his strategy and went, "Well, I don't dispute. I don't dispute."
No, he didn't dispute. I think there might have been one thing that he disputed. The only thing that he disputed that I said was that he came to our houses a lot.
Yes.
And that was just bizarre because he came to our houses all the time.
He claimed twice, maybe 3 times, only once to Victoria's house.
Yeah.
And he was adamant about that.
I know, and really strangely as well, and this was one of the follow-up questions that I wanted to ask, because we did covert actions with him. Now, we did covert actions, obviously, in the middle of the night, 2, 3 in the morning. We weren't doing those leaving from a pub. We were leaving from one of our houses to do these actions. And he said he was on these actions. So he was obviously there. I mean, I've got loads of memories of him being there as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a strange thing that that was the thing that he was so concerned about. I mean, you get the impression, because I think what he is... he has been the most successful of the undercover officers who's given evidence to the inquiry to give the impression of a professionality. He at no point criticised his managers about anything, I don't think.
He kind of did with the exaggerations.
Oh, yes, he did, actually.
That was the only bit where there was criticisms, because he was like, oh, well, yes, that sounds like it's exaggerated.
Yeah.
That's not something that I would say.
Because I had no reason to exaggerate anything.
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. Not justifying his job, his cushy lifestyle, infiltrating all these people's lives. He said didn't commit disorder.
Yeah, no, I mean, he was. It was very common, actually, to see in his reports that there was no ill intent, essentially, in certain things that were planned. We saw, and then we had his raw reports. It seems unlike many of the other undercover officers, he did actually write down his reports in a raw form, which then we've got a copy of. And then there's the process version of the reports. Many of the other undercover officers only delivered reports orally, so we have no trail of them, and they got very angry. He didn't get angry, actually, at any real point at all.
No, and it was very strange, because he just kept doing this thing of like, oh yes, in hindsight, looking at it now, oh, I can see why that might not be appropriate. And I think one of the reasons he didn't get angry was because he was just so accepting of everything. And that's what I wasn't. I really wasn't expecting passages in my witness statement to be read out and him just agree with them. It was just like, okay. So like you like disagree with all the things that your managers have written about your deployment, but you're going to agree with all the things I said. Like, fine, but
it's very strange. And you do wonder, I mean, because we weren't able to see his face, because it was just the oral testing that we could hear. He was joining remotely. It was very hard to tell whether he was being disingenuous or not in that, and whether it was, I mean, it felt to me like a strategy.
Oh yeah, completely. And we can't see him because of whatever job he has got now. And I'm not going to speculate, like we don't know, but it is going to be something within the realms of security services, GCHQ. Like we don't know, but he's professional at this. Like,
yes,
he is absolutely a professional at this. He is going to be very cognizant of the fact that he is still working in whatever area he is working, and his reputation wherever he's working. But ultimately, he is a professional, and he was gaming that.
Yes, very much. I think it was Flood, one of the managers, who said that he was the most professional of the SDS officers. Certainly, he gave that impression to the chair, who at the end thanked him for his frankness and his bluntness and his willingness to accept that sometimes he was wrong, which was yes, we said about the Dicey 2001. We also had a bunch of questions about Dicey 2003.
Yep.
The lead up to it more actually than the actual events of the day itself. There was no disorder on the first day of it. I mean, I was there. I just remember there being some stuff that did happen.
I mean, the thing is we've got reports that talk about it as being notorious. I was going through stuff in the CAT archives the other day, and I think they had something like 10,000 cops on shift over that period. I'd have to find the notes to make sure those numbers are right. But it was a ridiculous number of cops. It was such a huge policing operation. And we're saying these policing operations are informed by their intelligence.
Yes.
And he's saying no disorder, all fine. But then why did we have that massively repressive policing operation that we had that year?
It was quite interesting actually, because he said that his prediction was there'll be between 2,000 and 3,000 people at the event. According to the police reports today, there were 2,800. How did you do such a good job? And what people online have pointed out is that actually, like, the activist reports say there's about 1,000 people there. So it sounds more like that the police estimates of the day would have fit in with what he told them, rather than anything to do with the real world.
I mean that sounds more likely. I mean, and the saying of kind of like, I mean, Dicey 2003 was fantastic. We had this rolling series of road and rail blockades.
Yes.
We had delegates that were so frustrated. In the Indefensible video that I submitted that wasn't played, there's this lovely clip of this arms dealer walking up the road who is so frustrated he can't get to the SCI.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that from the day.
It was really good. Like, there were so many good actions. Like, that day was a real, and the thing
decentralized
is,
ones.
It was a decentralized thing. We had all these affinity group actions, and it was really, really successful. And despite Bishop being there, and despite this intelligence that he was feeding back, and I don't know if I can talk about reports that weren't shown on it.
It is frustrating. Yeah. I mean, it is frustrating with that. And I mean, as it currently stands, I've managed not to breach any restriction orders for at least a week.
Yay.
So let's keep that rolling.
Right,
if it's all possible. We saw quite a very small glimpse into the events of the G8 2005.
Very small.
I mean, I said, I turned to you and said there were about 3 minutes of that. I mean, I think it was a bit more than that, but not very much more at all. Obviously, he was arrested, and we had this really weird thing where he went through the arrest. He talked about an insane arrest. I mean, you were in the car with him, as well as HN60, the other undercover officer who supposedly he moved in with about 18 months before True Spies was shown on television because of what might happen in True Spies, which doesn't make any sense. In order to better his cover, it doesn't make any sense either. But anyway, so you were in the car with the two of them in a van full of people who've been picked up from a squat in Glasgow to go to the camp in Stirling. And there's 5 riot vans, 12 police motorcycles, 3 police dog vans surround you and arrest you, put you into a waiting prison van. moved multiple times through the night before being put in front of the sheriff the next day, and given a caution. Now, was a caution? No, sorry, sorry.
It all got magically dropped.
Yes, so that was the bit. Sorry, it was magically dropped, and there was he said, yes, some string. It was a really weird, oblique sort of reference. Oh, some strings were pulled by the Met Police. Oh, yes, very much.
Yeah, and then it was just left there, and that was the problem with so much of the questioning. It was just kind of like, there was this like admission, and then it was just left, and we didn't explore it. And that arrest, like they surrounded the minibus with cops with riot shields, with their shields against the window. I had my son with me, who was 14, 15 months at the time, and I was shouting at them, I've got my baby in the van. I mean, luckily he was like pointing at the dogs, going, "Doggy." But it was the most ridiculous intelligence planned arrest, and it was targeted at the Wombles. And we were all told we were going to be remanded. I was still breastfeeding my child. I remember saying to this lawyer who came to the cells, I can't be remanded. I was driving a minibus, I get back to my child. And she was just like, "Oh, there's nothing I can do about it." They very rarely, like he said, we weren't charged. We were charged because we went to court. It's very rare that they charge at petition level. There's no way you're going to get bail on this. And then suddenly we were just, and people doing court support said there was this massive police presence at court, a massive security for people to get into court. And then suddenly we were all released without charge. And actually interesting, when we were investigating Bishop, that was one of the things that came up for us investigating him, was the fact that was just dropped in such a weird way, because we all thought it was strange at the time, the way it was suddenly dropped.
Yeah, I mean, talking about your son, we saw a lot of reports today about his birth, his naming, key events in the beginning of his life. There was a lot of reporting about him by Bishop.
Yeah, it's absolutely disgusting. He, the first report on his birth and his full name was when he was 6 days old.
I mean, it starts actually before he's born with the pregnancy.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Bishop's Day is like, that probably wasn't appropriate that I reported on her pregnancy. Oh, and he had this great line that he reported on my pregnancy so that public order police would know that I was pregnant, and so wouldn't give me such a hard time.
Well, it was interesting actually, because he started saying that, then he realized how ridiculous it sounded, stopped himself. And I mean, credit to Daisy Monaghan. I've got a lot of criticism for her questioning, but she picked up on that and says, I think you were saying that, but the reality is that what the forward intelligence team, the way they treated you during that time period, suggests there was no such thing.
Oh my God, no such thing at all. I mean, she didn't cover half the incidents that happened. There was another incident at the Greek embassy when we had a demo in solidarity with Simon Chapman, who was in prison in Greece at the time, sort of fitted up by the Greek police, and was on a hunger strike. And it was just kind of like a photo call outside the Greek embassy. And it was like a summer's day. I was showing by then. I went to sit in, there was a little park nearby, just around the corner from the embassy. I want to sit in the park just because it was hot. And I thought, I'll go back when we're going to have photos. I had a few friends with me. Fit and load of TSG came into the park, targeted me specifically. Like, you can't be in this park. You can't be in this park. You've got to leave. You've got to leave. And then physically dragged me over the road and back into the pen. Didn't do that to anyone else whilst I was pregnant. I got pushed in the stomach while I was legal observing at Dicey. The criminal intelligence report that I've got that they didn't put to him, the FIT teams used the phrase, "Oh, she was making a great play out of being pregnant."
As if there was somehow some sort of like way you could. What the fuck does that even mean? I can't even begin to unpack that. What a load of old shit.
And we had this thing about like me not going on the kind of main day of protest, and that was because, like people said to me, other people might be able to do this, but the way you are targeted, it's not safe for you to do this when you're pregnant. I agreed with them, but it was like, it was a specific thing around the way that I was targeted that meant people said that to me.
Yeah, I mean, I was there. I remember being with you, and like it just, and I remember thinking at the time, it's like, what is it about Emily? Like, I mean, because I mean, like, no, there was nothing particular about the way you behaved on protests or anything like that. But it was like a visceral hatred.
Oh, it really was. I've always, like, some of what I've always put it down to is I work across a lot of different groups, and I've always worked to try and bring as many groups together as possible. And that goes so much against the divide and rule thing of the cops. And I think I've always put it down to that, but I don't know.
We did. I mean, we saw like some reports. So there was one in the further questioning where it was claimed that you were planning to do some direct action criminal damage and was expecting to be arrested on a Stop the War march in Parliament Square. I mean, I think anybody who's ever been on a Stop the War march in Parliament Square knows the opportunity for that would be very limited.
Yeah. Very, very limited opportunity, and actually, like, just so little point, you know. And
then we see the follow-up of the forward intelligence teams going, yes, because of this intelligence, we followed her everywhere, searched her, and prevented the criminal damage. Like, what the fuck?
All non-existent. And you know, it was quite funny as well because, like, he agreed with my assessment of like, well, if I'm going to go and do criminal damage, I'm going to go and do targeted criminal damage, when I'm not going to get caught.
Quite, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it really doesn't add up. I mean, one of the things that you put to Bishop, which he really sidestepped, didn't answer, was this idea, you know, this point that the time at which you started hanging around with them a lot was the time when the forward intelligence teams really took disliking to you and started targeting you specifically repeatedly.
Yeah, it was just around the time that I first started getting to know him. It was at Dicey 2001 in particular when I first started getting followed, like that when it started getting really, really intense. And then in the sort of couple of months before that, I started noticing them know who I was a bit more, but it was that Dicey 2001 when it really, really intensified.
And I mean, it's interesting actually, because when we heard from Boylan, we got the impression that these were rival units. That in fact the fit were there because you know, public order didn't trust the intelligence they were getting from the special branch, so they had their own unit set up to get intelligence a different way. But I mean, this really reminded me of why I've always thought that, in fact, when we first learned about the spy cops, I was like, of course, they were feeding information to the FIT, who were then targeting people in a really thuggish way.
And I think even if there was rivalry between them, that does not negate the fact that they were feeding them information and feeding them targeting information.
Yeah, absolutely. And it reminds me of something that Niall said this morning when we were talking about the kettling of May Day 2001. It was this desire by the police to punish protesters that didn't have the ability to charge, didn't have the ability to take into custody, didn't have the ability to put in prison. So we'll find other ways of punishing them for daring to mobilize.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's just kind of like whatever they can do to repress, to harass, to deter. You know, it's political policing every single time. I mean, we didn't, you know, with the lack of questioning on anything, we never actually quite got to the questions around why Dicey and Disarm Dicey was targeted. And we had the statement saying that, you know, we were targeted because of the financial value of the arms trade to the state.
Yeah,
it's got nothing to do with what we did. It was because the state cares about the arms trade.
Yeah, which I mean, it speaks volumes about the morality of the state, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the incidents which he was questioned on, but very frustratingly, we didn't get to see all the evidence about, was the Farnborough Air Show gala dinner.
Yeah.
An incident where there is some very revealing video footage, which the Inquirer decided not to play, but they did show it to him outside the hearing.
Yeah, they showed it to him just before the hearing, and it's video evidence from one of the forward intelligence teams who were at the site. I found it in my cellar last year. That was a surprise finding out in my cellar.
No bottles of wine?
No, just VHSs of spy cops.
The life of an activist, comrades. The life of an activist. But yeah, I mean, it's a really compelling piece of footage. It relates to an action that yourself and others were partaking in. Basically, essentially a piece of street theatre.
Oh, it was a piece of street theatre. We had these dismembered dolls from the pound shop that I'd covered in. I can't remember if it was red paint or food dye. Can't remember now. And they were doing some presentation of a ceremonial sword. He kept coming back to the lake, throwing things in front of a car, which even he said wasn't criminal damage anyway. And I've got no recollection of that. It was more just to have these things and kind of go, this is the result of the arms trade. Now, I had a 7-month-old baby, and trying to get props together and cover them in fake blood and have them dry in time wasn't really very manageable with a 7-month-old baby, so they were a bit damp. So there's this you can see in the video I have these bag of dolls that are a bit damp. So we get there and we're immediately kind of, in his words, manhandled into this pen. He kind of completely admits it was a disproportionate policing response to what we were doing. I get sort of singled out to be stopped and searched. He grabs my bag and tries to pull me back, which again, we didn't sort of come back into the kind of him obstructing police bit. And eventually I get thrown on the floor and arrested for going equipped to commit criminal damage. The person I was arrested with, who also had dolls on them, had the dolls returned to him, whereas I was charged. And I always thought that the charges were dropped because it was utter bullshit. It was just kind of like, I had a bag of dolls, bit of fake blood on them. I wasn't going to do anything with them. Anyway, turns out, so he was listed as one of my witnesses. So in this video, going back, in the video, there's all this footage after I've been arrested of him arguing with the cops and saying that they wanted to come and talk to me about my baby and making sure that my baby's okay. And he was asked whether that was genuine concern. And he was just like, oh, yeah, of course it was. So it was just like the implication was that he wasn't capable of feigning concern when his entire job was about feigning concern. It's just like, what?
I mean, there was a lot of these sort of questions which you go, hang on, why is this? Why are we going through this rigmarole about that? It doesn't make a great deal of sense.
None whatsoever. And he comes to custody, so I got this custody note that he's also signed that says that he spoke to my partner about my child, that they were all right. And I actually remember that day because he got me smoking. I'm still smoked now. He got me smoking again because I got released from custody. And I was so stressed afterwards. And he was smoking. I was just like, oh, somebody give me a cigarette. But the charges eventually got dropped. But they got dropped that it went all the way up to commander level of all these things. And they said that I was fabricating my defense. Basically, the way of it, it can't be sugar-coated. They are accusing me of being prepared to commit perjury and being prepared to pervert the course of justice. And Bishop reiterates this in his witness statement, that he couldn't possibly have breached legal privilege because I'd fabricated my defense. And it's obviously clear that I haven't fabricated my defense from all the reams of evidence that I've got. But it's this thing, it's just kind of like, it's really lucky that I have got so much evidence. This, if I hadn't kept all this stuff, it would be my word against his, and it would just been, it would have just been another thing that's just accepted. Oh, that's some activist fabricating a defense. And he just kind of said, oh, well, I just went off the documents when I was writing my witness statement, or something like that. But then that wasn't pursued as well. It's just like all these times where there's been stuff that has contradicted stuff in his witness statement. But it's an official document to the inquiry that is, that he's kind of gone, oh no, that probably wasn't right. I would just leave that then.
Yeah, I mean, this was done time and again. There was one of the reasons why I think one of the many things that he did, which was very suspect, is that he very much, as sort of his professionalism, I guess, refused to throw any of his fellow officers under any buses. I mean, we kind of forgot now because it was one of the first things he was questioned about. But the whole fact that he was fully aware that Jim Boyling was in a relationship with Rosa, which he tried, I mean, he'd already admitted on Monday that he was aware because of phone calls to the office about it. But yet, when he's talking about the interactions he had with Jim Boyling later on, he's like, "Oh, I didn't know." And it's like, well, you did have an inkling. Oh, yes, I did have an inkling because of that, but I didn't bring it up when I was with him. And the questions about the way in which he interacted with the NPORU officers that he met in the field. Obviously, he was deployed at the same time as Rod Richardson, as Mark Kennedy. And his claim that supposedly he treated them like other activists, that nobody told him they weren't undercover officers, but he worked it out.
Oh, yeah. Cool. Of course he did. Don't be so cynical. Of course, he worked it out.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed very clear to me. I mean, particularly the way in which he responded to things in the reports. Just kind of go, "Oh, if it says in the report, it must be true." Yeah. I mean, it doesn't wash for me.
Oh God, there was no credibility there whatsoever. I mean, it didn't help. So there's this incident at Kingston Green Fair where after Boyling's deployment, where he's seen with Rosa and Bishop sees him, and then Bishop has this meeting, Boyling asks to meet him afterwards. And other than being the only bit he was clear on, because it's in his statement that Boyling asked for DVDs, and the only thing he was really wanted to clarify was that there were CDs. Again,
music CD. I mean, that was the most animated I've heard in the whole day.
Definitely. And it's also like, I wanted someone, the follow-up question I wanted on that was, well, were they still pirated CDs? Like, that's still illegal. Doesn't matter if they were DVDs or CDs, that would still be illegal.
I mean, I wonder if it's because he kept reiterating on Monday when he was questioned that the DVDs that he produced were very poor quality, that nobody would really want them. And then it's because the follow-up is if a fellow undercover officer wants them, they must be half decent at least. It didn't add up at all.
I mean, it didn't help that during the questioning, Daisy got the years completely wrong. I mean, she kept doing this throughout the questioning. There were so many times when I was messaging Lydia just going, got the years wrong again. I mean, Kingston Green Fair, that incident didn't happen in 2002. We didn't do a stall at Kingston Green Fair in 2002. It could well have been 2003. There was a few years when we did them. And that didn't help. And there were a couple of, again, we didn't come back to it. She asked him about May Day 2002.
Yes.
And then he couldn't remember which one that was. And instead of kind of getting the information, I could have told her which one it was. I was there, I helped organise it. We just got brushed over again.
Moved on from, we had this a bit with some of the Earth First Summer gatherings, which there was a lot of questions about those. And he was like, "Oh, which one was that?" I was like, "Oh, somewhere in the West Country. I don't know where." And it's like, come on, man. Come on. I mean, like, you're not prepped. Deeply frustrating. There was he admitted to being at the very first, the 2003, which was in Yorkshire, for summer gathering, which was the first time there was a meeting about planning for the G8 in Scotland, which Kate Wilson was chairing. In a relationship with Mark Kennedy at the time. It was just before, I think, maybe. Before that. Sorry, I apologize. But it was, he was asked about that. I fluffed that. I mean, like, the question was fluffed completely.
The question was completely fluffed.
Yeah, it really did. She didn't seem to get at the point of the question at all.
Absolutely.
And then just moved on.
Which
I mean, he was quite happy to do.
Absolutely. And I mean, this was the problem. She was so rushed, and in fairness, I mean, it's not saying much. She was slightly better than she was on Monday.
Well,
but you couldn't get much worse than she was on Monday. So, but because of that, it's, every single thing that needed just a little bit more drilling down into. I mean, the questions on Kate in particular were appalling because she missed the point of the question. She didn't ask them properly, and then didn't come back to them.
No, frustrating. We've had some comments. Please, if you are able to comment, please do. We'll speak to all of it. One hilarious claim he made that was all the dope he smoked with activists was not in their homes, but in the but the during the meetings in the Royal Festival Hall,
yeah.
that was something where she went, in the Royal Festival Hall, and he was like, oh yes, oh, it was before the smoking ban.
And then he started saying, oh well, maybe it was on the terraces.
Yeah. I mean, like, but just the idea that somehow, that before the smoking ban, we could all smoke joints in public.
Yeah,
come on, that was not the case.
Ridiculous.
A farce. I mean, if you are able to like and share, and there's 94 people watching, only 7 of you have liked it. I know it's cringe to ask, but it makes a huge difference to how visible these videos are. There's others. We often get a lot of these ones which are not particularly, nothing particularly else there. We heard a bit about the GM crops that he was allowed to trash. We had a number of questions about that. I think it's a really key, important issue because he says that the fact that the CPS decided not to charge the Greenpeace activists for that first one meant that the SDS considered that was the barometer. That meant if the people weren't being charged for it, it meant their officers could go out and commit criminality.
But he kind of fudged that as well,
Very
because
much.
there's like confusion on the dates and which ones he was involved in. I tried to have a quick look back through his authorizations to see what crime he was authorized for before that date, but I didn't. It's a 122-page document, and you can't actually just do like control find on inquiry documents, which is one of the most frustrating things ever. I spend my life going, I know I've read this in a document, and actually then having to like scan them because you can't just find things in them easily.
I mean, this is one that there are so many ways in which the undercover policing inquiry has made itself a very difficult inquiry to engage with, to follow. And I mean, many of them people are very aware of because they run up against it. I mean, particularly today, a typical day of difficulties in following the evidence. But there are so many of these extra things, like the way that these blank PDFs, essentially images, which you can't search the text at all. It just makes
everything is just made as difficult as possible. It feels, and like some of it, I don't think is deliberate. Like the document
bless your heart.
I mean, some of it is absolutely. Some of it is. Some of it is just, I don't know, incompetence. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I think there's a balance. But what I would say, and we talked today about the first mental health breakdown I had because of policing, and I had a second one. And this process has been stressful. It's been triggering. I spent so much time like working on my statements, finding exhibits that I don't have. And I always knew this process would be stressful in what it brings up. But what's made it so much worse, like they say they're trauma informed, but actually it's their very attitude. It's the fact that we've submitted these things 10 months ago and they're looking at exhibits like 2 days ago, that they haven't processed these things, that is just making me so angry. It's making me so upset. And it would be hard enough sitting in a hearing room, hearing an undercover officer talk about my mental health, talk about the fact that he reported on my baby, and some of the really personal stuff that's come up. But in parallel to that, I'm dealing with all this anger at the inquiry about how they've treated us, about the fact that, and even down to like who they've called to give evidence, like all the people missing, the voices missing, like Dave's not giving evidence, we're not hearing, like blacklisting was brought up like in like 10 seconds today because I'm on the green list.
And which he'd never heard of before.
Yeah.
Allegedly, supposedly, what has been described as the foremost source on environmental action in the UK. I've never heard of the Green List.
But again, there were no follow-up questions. Like we know the links between the SDS and blacklisting, and he just went, "Oh, I hadn't heard of that," and then she left it. Rather than asking those follow-up questions about the people.
I mean,
But it's the fact that, I wasn't affected by it. I just happened to be on the list. I didn't lose my livelihood on it. And they're not hearing from the people who lost their livelihoods from it. And that is absolutely disgusting.
I mean, it's an absolute disgrace because, the inquiry it basically relies upon the free labor of those who were spied on in order to formulate the way that it does the inquiry. Then when people go through all that trauma of reliving this horrific thing that happened to them and doing the work, they cherry pick from it and do a slapdash job of using it. It is incredibly frustrating, and it's totally understandable why huge numbers of people decide that they don't want to engage with the process.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I keep questioning why I'm engaged with this. I'm just like, I'm feeling all this anger and upset. I'm having nightmares. I'm waking up in the middle of the night. Why am I putting myself through this? And I was just like, oh, well, I got this far now. It does help that I have an obsessive interest with policing, and it's been one of the main things I've worked on for years. I think if it hadn't been for that, that might, that might have made a difference. But I do have an obsessive interest in policing, so that definitely helps. And I'm kind of at this point now, so I'm going to come and give evidence. But I do keep questioning, why am I putting myself through this?
I mean, I think the way that I rationalize it is that if I wasn't here, I would still have all those problems. It's just I wouldn't be here. So I might as well have something something to wrestle with as opposed to wrestling in the dark. There's some more just more comments have come up. Gotta wonder if he was so empathetic that the discs he gave out were music CDs and not DVD was because there have been reports of his installing cracked software on activist computers. As someone who evidently had skills as a hacker, there must be at least some possibility that he was giving out software on DVD, not CD, with spyware or backdoors built in.
Oh, yeah, that's another question that we had in our R10s that weren't asked.
Yeah. I mean, that whole process was very frustrating because when there was a breach earlier on, which we can't talk about what the breach was about, but it was a farce. There was a 15-minute delay, and the hearing was obviously a very short time. So the Rule 10 process, where the lawyers for everybody else goes and has a chat with the counsel to the inquiry about what else could be asked, took place. That was rushed. We came back in. Supposedly that was fed into some of the questions that were asked then. And then the chair said, "Oh, are there any Rule 10s?" Daisy Monaghan goes, "Oh no, there's nothing else." Suddenly, the next room, because obviously we're in a different room. There's this sudden a load of noise from the public gallery, from the lawyers for the non-state non-police corps participants, and the chair goes, "I think I can hear some noise off stage.
Like no shit.
Perhaps you should check." And we have, essentially 3 minutes of checking. Is there any further questions? She cherry picks, I think it was 2, maybe 3 questions.
Yeah, and they were dealt with so briefly. And so not satisfactory. But the hacking thing again, we got shown a report on that. And one of the things that he says in his statement about Disarmed IC is we contemplated computer misuse, but we've seen all this stuff that, that was him. He had the contacts, the email that was shown. That's not I can't remember which bit was breached.
That wasn't the breach. That bit wasn't the breach. It's okay. I was slightly worried for a second there, but no, it was a different thing that was the breach.
But yeah, that was all him. Absolutely, I didn't have a problem with people doing it, but I didn't have those skills. The other people, he talked about the sort of small group of 4 or 5 of us who were involved in organizing. We didn't have those skills. That was through him, and then again, it's one of those things that he says that in his statement. But then we've got, even in one of the documents that was shown, it says that he has the hacking contacts, and that wasn't. It's almost explored, but it's not explored enough. And I think Mitting really needs everything drawn out completely. Even with the going back to the Grosvenor House thing, he made this weird clarification to Bishop about, it wasn't breach of legal privilege if it was fabricated. That's your understanding. And he just went, "Oh, yes, that's my understanding, sir." And it's just but the whole point that's just been made is that it wasn't fabricated.
Yeah. He took every opportunity to just go, "Oh, yes, that'll be fine. Yeah, well, whatever you say." Very, very frustrating, deeply frustrating process. And I think when it comes to particularly things like the hacking, I get the impression the chair has printouts of any on paper of anything that would ever exist on screen. I don't get the impression he would own a computer. Yeah. So I don't think he gets it at all for any of that stuff.
Can I just say one thing about his exit strategy?
Yes,
as well, because we had no evidence about his exit strategy.
Nothing at all.
Whatsoever. And I got told, "Oh, well, that's redacted in his statement." The point I made, well, it's not redacted in my statement. No. And then my memories, and I can talk about them.
Absolutely.
Because he started his exit strategy He started disappearing for a long time.
Yep.
He met this woman called Kalinda, who we met a few times, and we think they have these people called support role players who are like these people who come in to enhance their cover roles.
Yes.
And as far as we're aware of what we suspect is she was one of these support role players. So we did meet her a few times. He supposedly goes to live in Amsterdam.
Yep.
So he does this sometime, I think in early 2005, maybe. Is why he's sort of like disappears for a while. He weirdly retrains as a picture framer. It's the story that he gives. He gives Victoria as a cipher that she's given in the inquiry. He gives Victoria this sort of framed picture of a Dicey 2003 poster. And goes to live in Amsterdam, and then just comes back occasionally. Comes back for the G8. Comes back for Dicey 2005,
which we didn't cover at all today.
Oh no, Dicey 2005 and the discovery of the spotter card.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a huge area in itself. That.
Yeah. So much stuff around Dicey 2000. Well, just was not covered.
No.
I mean, after going into like incredible detail about loads of these other things.
Yeah.
And these are all supposed to be these major public disorder events. That, the justification for spying on us. And we've had like so little about these actual events and what happened at them. So then he goes back to Amsterdam. And at some point, Victoria's sister, she's 19, she's on her gap year. Her and her friend, not connected to any of our political movements at all, are traveling, and they decide to go to, they want to go to Amsterdam,
as any 19-year-old should.
Yeah, absolutely. And so he's contacted, and they go stay at this flat for 2 days in Amsterdam with him and this Kalinda woman. She says it was very sparse, that it didn't look very lived in. But it's one of the last contacts that any of us had with her. Is this 19-year-old going and staying with him in another country, and there's no reporting on this. We're not going to discuss this. We're not going to say, is this appropriate? How disgusting this was that you let a 19-year-old come and stay in your flat with her friend. And then after that, with the contact sort of slowly drops out. Similar story to a lot of the other spy cops, in that kind of emotional manipulation. I think especially with me, given my child was still small. This woman Kalinda supposedly had a miscarriage. Her father was dying. That's why there was like a contact. It was all this like, we were all feeling like really sorry for him, really worried about him, really concerned. He also used his arrest at the G8 to enhance his exit strategy. He told us that she was really unhappy that he got arrested, that, he had to be like really careful because of how she felt about it. And then just like totally disappearing. But yeah, apparently we don't get to talk about that.
This is the insane thing the inquiry tries to do. It goes, that stuff's off limits. It's like, no, this is our lives.
Well, exactly. You can't redact my memories.
I'm sorry. You can fuck off.
You can't do that. You can say it with stuff we're not allowed to know about, but
like certainly, there's nothing that we can talk about that's come from the inquiry, that's come from the documents that we're not allowed to know, of course. But these are things we know because we lived them.
Yeah.
So what the fuck?
And then why the fuck aren't you putting them to him? Because they are the things that we lived.
Yeah.
And even if that goes into bits where they have to cut things, because there was a few times when she was just like, oh no, we don't need to talk about that, as if it was going into some dodgy area, and it wasn't.
Right. Yeah.
And, really, really bizarre.
I mean, you get the impression there are always topics which the inquiry has decided it doesn't want broadcast. And for that reason, we have closed hearings. And they are subject to restriction order. I sit there without being able to use my keyboard, or if I am, there was a section of today that was enclosed. I managed to report on it without using anything about I made some jokes about the fact you couldn't bloody recall anything as usual. I mean, this is generally, there's always the opportunity to say something, even if you can't say that very much. None of that. It's this process essentially is about getting to the truth of what happened. That doesn't appear to be done, in my opinion.
No, I'm sitting here. I'm still remembering topics that weren't put to him. So I had a massive civil claim against the victim for harassment that he would have been a witness for. And he's already described some of the things that they did to harass me. And one of the reasons my claim failed at the time was that the cops denied that there was like a single controlling mind. So there wasn't a case of harassment that they could prove. And now with the inquiry, obviously know that there's all these links between all these units and how I was targeted. But there were no questions about that. We touched on Fairford very briefly. Again,
very briefly. I mean, Fairford coaches, there's so much with that. Yeah.
Sorry, we've been talking for such a long time.
No, it's fair enough.
I was like exploding.
No, it's fair enough. It's absolutely fine. I mean, the Fairford one's really interesting because there is some reason why all the questions were like, no dates. There's no need to. And
what was it? His extract. Was it
very strange. Very strange.
What was the word that was used?
Something. I'll be honest. My mind is slightly mush. It's been a fairly long week. It's been a fairly long day. We have been doing this broadcast now for over 45 minutes. Is there anything particular you'd like to add?
The inquiry needs to recall him. That was not good enough.
I agree.
I have written a very, very, very detailed statement. There is a lot of evidence in that wasn't put to him. I know there's a lot of call participants who have a myriad of issues that they wanted to put to him. We've waited 11 years to get to the point where we are hearing from these fuckers that spied on us, that infiltrated, that reported on our children. It is simply not good enough to say there isn't enough time and we're not covering stuff. Saying this very loosely because I don't really believe there's any justice in this inquiry.
No, there isn't.
There were to be any justice in this inquiry,
or in Britain at all.
Yeah. Fair. He needs to be recalled. Like if you're trying to get to the truth of these deployments, why they were there, why they're in our lives, then he needs to be recalled. There is absolutely no excuses why he shouldn't be brought back, and it's absolutely disgusting that we are in the situation we are in today with such incomplete evidence.
And it was so obvious that was going to be the case. He was deployed for 7 years. Like trying to cover him in one day was never going to work. What were they thinking? Most undercover officers have a full week assigned to them with the understanding that it may be less than the full 4 days, but it's there. The space is there. I mean, because of that, Carlos Saraki is giving evidence next week. I'm sure that it'll be David Barcasey who gives does the questioning, and I'm sure he will aim to complete it within 3 days, which would suggest that there will be space on the Thursday.
We can have him back.
If not, then there'll be plenty of other officers who are giving evidence during this phase where the Thursdays may end up being free. If not in the whole, in part. And I see no reason why he can't come in for a few afternoons, if not one full day.
Absolutely. There is absolutely no reason why he can't be called back. And and it's not just, I mean, I've got a huge, long list of issues. Victoria has a huge, long list of issues. Everyone I know in the room, all the other CPs I know have got a huge long list of issues. Not good enough.
No, not good enough at all. It is 7 p.m. We are probably going to get thrown out of the venue fairly soon. I noticed that 124 people are watching. Only 11 of you liked it. Do you not like it? Please like this. Please, whatever platform you're using. Please like, share, subscribe, all that guff. If you're able to support this work in any way you can, please follow the links. Share it. You look up the hashtag SpyCops. Visit spycops.info for the background, the podcast episodes, everything else. You are able to donate to the work that I'm doing at kofi.com/Tom B. Fowler. All the links exist in my profile. Although there's a couple more questions before we go.
I'm just going to say support Tom because we rely on his work so much. It is incredible. And it's been like for me, I live hundreds of miles away and I can't always be here. I work most days that the inquiry's on, so I do catch up with the YouTube feeds, but having your coverage is essential. Like it's been the thing that's kept so many of us connected to the inquiry. So please support Tom.
Thanks, Tommy. There's a comment here from Jesse. What did he mean by the term abstracted? about why he wasn't paying attention to fair for protests or coach plans. I mean, this was an area where we're not allowed to know. I have no idea what he meant. It's really confusing.
Yeah, incredibly confusing.
Another comment saying, "I won't miss that awful snorty noise he makes occasionally." Yeah, me neither.
No.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us. We'll be back again on Monday. We'll be having 4 days of questioning of the undercover officer Carlo Saracchi, who infiltrated a myriad of anti-fascist, anti-racist groups, the Socialist Party. He deceived 3 women into sexual relationships. 2 of them we heard from, Lindsay and Donna McLean. A lot of questions about his deployment, about his fraudulent activity, about his sexual abuse. Please tune in from that, starting Monday morning, 10 a.m. We'll see you then. I'll do a recap of the week. Hopefully you'll be joining me for that recap of the week. Yeah, we'll cover everything and more that has happened during the week. So please join us for that. It'll go on. It'll be a video live broadcast. I'll then edit it down. Last week's I haven't finished yet. I'll get that out before the end of the weekend. There's so much bloody work. Thanks for joining. We'll see you all again soon. Cheers.
Cheers.